Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Langley Kirkwood is back discussing his new film Collision on Netflix, Warrior Season 3, and the upcoming Netflix One Piece live-action film. It was eye-opening to have a discussion with Langley about very real issues highlighted in the film Collision: xenophobia, racism, and corruption. He also educates me about the history and current socio-political situation in South Africa. Warrior Season 3 is also underway, and the excitement was so difficult to contain. Cast members are flying in daily, and the reunion is expected to be epic. I am grateful to have these thoughtful conversations and hope you enjoy them too. My favor, as usual, is to please continue to share this podcast with others. It would mean so much if you would also rate it and leave me feedback. If you would like to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, visit my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to make a donation. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Langley. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast again.
It's great to be back, Mimi. Thank you for having me.
Well, now that you're here a second time, you are going to be considered a regular. So you're going to have to get used to me bothering you frequently now to talk to me.
I look forward to number 3 already.
Well, off air, we were kind of teasing and talking where I said, oh my gosh, I looked at my notes and I had all these things I still need to talk to Langley about. So yeah, I basically am already slating for future episodes, but congratulations on all of the amazing, wonderful things, all the projects you're working on. Of course, the most recent world premiere of Collision on Netflix. It's always great to see you on screen, but there was something really special about seeing you in South Africa in your element. And I know you've done other things before, but of course, I'm used to seeing you as the evil Buckley and warrior. And so it was kind of cool to kind of just, here comes the dialects that we talked about last time. And you're like kind of your native speech. So, but congrats on all of this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Collision has kind of taken us all a bit by surprise in terms of how well it's been received and how well it's done on Netflix around the world. It's my director keeps sending me little snippets of all the statistics, all the numbers, because he's obviously so excited that his film has done so well. He sent me a clip to say that it was the number 6 most watched film in Netflix around the world last week, and that is taking into consideration the fact that it was only available for 4 days of the week last week. So he's over the moon. We're all very excited. I mean, it's a low budget movie that was shot for well under $1 million. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah, in 3 weeks, in the middle of lockdown in Johannesburg, which is a city that has rolling blackouts, power outages every day, and did have every day during the shoot last year. So we had logistical challenges that filmmakers in first world countries don't ever or often have to think about. And obviously in lockdown in South Africa, I don't know if you know this, but we had a curfew which at some stages was 11 o'clock at night, some stages 12 o'clock, and if I remember correctly, it was 11 o'clock at night when we were shooting. And when you consider that so many of the scenes in the film are night shoots, and were shot downtown in Johannesburg, where the whole power grid would often go out in the middle of the shoot, and traffic lights, which obviously play quite a big part in the film, would go out.
Yeah.
And so there were some logistical challenges that fortunately didn't seem to affect the way that the film was received, which is great. And we're all really, impressed and pleasantly surprised, but so proud of the fact that it's done so well. And on a budget of so little in such a short time frame, with an all South African cast and crew, which is also a big thing. Fabian, our director, he's a Frenchman who lives in LA. So apart from him, it was an entirely South African affair.
Yes, that just must be so special for you. And now hearing all of the challenges for production and during filming, that kind of really puts it in perspective. And of course, I was tickled because I get to watch you as always. That's always a lot of fun. And I'm like, are you ever going to be like the super nice guy?
Yeah, you just get to see a different kind of racist every time.
Yeah. And that's really funny because you're like the direct opposite of all of your characters. Like you couldn't be further from, which I guess is kind of a quote unquote fun. I don't know if fun's the right word to play, but like, that challenge as an actor. But yeah, I'm just thinking, gosh, you're such a great actor because I usually don't like you on screen. And when you're on this screen with me on the podcast, I adore you. And so it's a lot of fun, but I know it's a fictional movie. And but one of the things that I really appreciate, because I'm not sure, I feel like I look through Netflix at what to watch more often than I actually watch anything on Netflix. I feel like I'm watching trailers more than anything. And, I'm like, okay, because you're in this, I absolutely made it a highlight for me. And I was so grateful because I really enjoy the opportunity, one, to see like a South African cast, which I normally would not see. Like I don't actually go to the international channel and kind of, delve in, to my embarrassment. But what kind of jumped out at me was a lot of the themes in the film made me think, right? Because of course there's parallelism around the world of a lot of the racism and all the things happening, but really as Americans, it's so embarrassing that we just pretty much absorb ourselves in everything that's happening here and how hard it is here and how bad our lives are and all the controversy. But clearly there's a lot going on. And again, I know this was a movie, but I can't help but think, wow, there are definitely a lot of things going on in South Africa. And I'd love I'd love your knowledge on it and your opinion, especially on the controversy between like refugees coming in from other parts of South Africa and just seeing like the continent itself, like all the different countries and that dynamic. Like I'd love for you to share what kind of you got from the film and how that all those themes played.
Absolutely. So I'd love to talk about Collision, and I shall. I mean, I just want to say up front, with regards to what you just mentioned, it has always taken me, and I think a lot of people, by surprise when we find out that the high school history curriculum in the US has very little history, to do with the outside world. It's I've always found it, and I know a lot of other people have found it quite insular. And I don't know why that is, because I mean, it is, I really do believe that, it's kind of like we are part of a global village, and we are one big human family, and it's kind of, I feel it's kind of useful and helpful, to know how things are going on, what's going on with your neighbor, how are things over there? Good, okay, good, and we, around the world, I think for the most part, most countries around the world, in South Africa certainly, my high school and university history curriculum was very much an international curriculum. I mean, in my senior year at high school, my final high school history project was on the American Civil War. And, there is obviously a great interest in global history in places around the world. But I know that a lot of really well-educated American friends of mine do have a limited knowledge about the history and the kind of socio-economic, socio-political climates of countries around the world. And I hope that is something that I get to see changing and evolving within the United States going forward. Like I think it'll be better for the world and everyone in general. It's I love the US and I love America, and I love you. I love you guys. It's just that has always been something that I've found really strange about the US education system. So now that I've given you a bit of a lecture.
No, and a rightful one. And I will say, we have enough trouble having the American history be accurate, let alone getting into the global history. I can't imagine how botched they're going to make that narrative. So it's a struggle. Education is a struggle, and it is an embarrassment, honestly. And you're 1000% right on it. So thank you for calling us out.
Oh God. don't know, I'm a bit speechless now.
Oh.
But I'm gonna talk about Collision.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's it really is. The story is, we obviously, the film was made with the intention to entertain first and foremost, but obviously, another intention of the film was to educate people in other countries who don't know kind of the socio-political climate in South Africa, what it's about, and what we're dealing with at the moment. So if we start with my character, Johan Creuser, in the film, he basically is, he's an everyman. He's a very typical white heterosexual kind of upper middle class guy of about my age, my generation. This character was based on people I knew and know. He's not that far removed from me as an individual in many aspects, certainly with the parenting aspect, with the teenage daughter, those interactions, kind of wanting to connect with his teenage daughter and being completely blanked by her when he walks in and tries to bridge that gap. That was something I could relate to 100%. Yeah. And South Africa statistically has the biggest divide between the top 1% and the rest of the population in terms of income inequality. And even though things have changed, and we have a Black majority government in power, and we have a large emerging and rapidly growing Black middle class, there is still a great discrepancy in terms of income inequality based along racial lines. So that is one aspect of the film that we kind of see. We see a window into the white privilege. We see a window into white entitlement, not just with Johan and his wife, Diane, but also with their daughter, Nikki. It's a lot of people have commented on her character in this. And just in terms of, what a brat, what a spoiled brat, yeah. But I suppose it is, we are conditioned, and we learn from our parents, yeah. So I guess it speaks to what kind of parenting there has been in that household. Mm-hmm. The other big, so there's the racism element in the film. There's the income inequality element, which I'd say is very spot on. And there is a lot of, racial tension in the country that hasn't even been looked at or dealt with properly. I think when 1994 rolled around and democracy happened in South Africa, there was something called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which did amazing work where people were given the opportunity to come forward and confess to crimes that they had committed in the name of apartheid and in the name of the Nationalist Party government. And they were given amnesty, and they were essentially forgiven for their sins, and we were allowed to move forward. But a lot of people didn't come forward. A lot of people didn't talk about the things that they'd done. A lot of people weren't given the opportunity to voice their pain and the trauma that they had suffered. And so as a result of the conversations that didn't take place, a lot of real emotions were swept under the rug, in my opinion, and are kind of now, having fermented for many years. There was the kind of the wonder years of Nelson Mandela, and after he left office, things slowly festered, and I believe a lot has, there's so many conversations that haven't taken place in this country that need to take place in order for people to actually empathize with each other properly, in order for people to forgive each other properly, in order for people to heal properly, and then and be able to move forward. And then if that can happen, I really believe South Africa is destined for incredible things. I think Africa is destined for incredible things in the next century if we can get things right. And I think it could be Africa's time. But in terms of South Africa, we certainly need to have lots of positive but honest and hard conversations about our past before we can move forward. And I guess, with where America is, where the US is right now, we're not alone in that. I
No.
think it's a global thing. I think the world is,
Yeah.
you know, the world is finding itself in an age where stuff can't be hidden anymore. It's all kind of out in the light for everyone to see. And, you know, so we've got to actually, I guess, start being honest now with each other.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. One of the things that always kind of comes up when I have these type of conversations is, oh, this is uncomfortable. Like, and I'm like, that is exactly why we need to be having this discussion and talking about it. And like you said, and just, I appreciate so much for your insight on that and sharing, because I think we really do get caught up in, like you said, we are sharing in this. And at the top of this, you said we're a global family. And if anything, we can all kind of consistently, like hand in hand, learn together from that. But it's so fascinating that literally, you know, across the ocean, it's the exact same thing, where people are so uncomfortable by the horrors, I guess, of the past and the decisions that were made, and they can't get past the fact that, well, that was that, and we can do better, and it's okay to acknowledge it without this quote unquote making you feel guilty, and you shouldn't be feeling bad about things. I'm like, well, we should feel bad about it, but it doesn't mean that we did it, right? Like we did these things, and like there's this disconnect. And I guess it's the same there, where people are just like, well, if we talk about it, that means you're blaming us, right? Is that the sentiment?
I think that there is a lot of that, where a lot of people are defensive, where a lot of people are, you know, because you have on one side a lot of people who are really pissed off justifiably and making accusations. And perhaps I guess that, you know, the trick is like any conversation. It's like, you know, when you're speaking to a family member you have an issue with, you know, there are certain ways in which you can open the conversation and phrase things, and rather, you know, ask questions rather than make statements, or you can make I statements, and, you know, they're ways in which you can do it. And I think what often happens is straight away, especially on social media, where you can't actually look at someone in the eye and perhaps, you know, get a sense of irony if they perhaps have one in or whatever. We lose stuff on social media, so that we go straight from statement to feeling really defensive and triggered and angry, and so this polarization happens almost off the bat, like immediately.
Yeah.
And that's a hard way to have a constructive conversation. So I don't know how we're going to get past that in the digital age. I guess it's one of the challenges that we face, and we've still got to figure out a solution to that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that there are certainly, with the film, with Collision, there are certainly other parallels that we see, you know, with South Africa and the rest of the world right now. You know, in the US, there's a lot of xenophobia, you know, and there's a lot of xenophobia in South Africa, you know. And again, it's towards people, a lot of people who've immigrated into South Africa from other countries and who are here. You know, obviously there are people who've got here by any means that they can, because their lives depend on it. And there are other people who've gone through the painstaking process of getting here legally at great financial and personal cost, and they are still being victimized because they are from a different country, because they speak a different language, because they might look slightly different or sound slightly different. And I guess the other similarity is that, you know, there are a lot of elements in the country here, a lot of people in the country here who will try and stir up and foment kind of xenophobic sentiment, anti-foreigner, anti-immigrant sentiment, as a way of blaming, you know, the shitty socioeconomic conditions at the moment, which are, you know, which are being felt around the world. It doesn't really matter what kind of government is in power around the world right now. We're living in a very difficult world right now. And, you know, people are often very quick to blame certain population groups as a way of avoiding any kind of accountability for their mismanagement as government.
That I'm really glad you brought that up, because that heartbreaking, you know, story of the young woman and her father, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it her Nigerian boyfriend? Was that right?
So
Was he from?
the character's name is Palesa.
Yes.
And yes, Palesa is a South African. Her father, Wiseman, is a South African. And Palesa's boyfriend, Adze, is a Nigerian immigrant.
Right.
Who has, as he states in the film, he's come in there legally. He's done, followed the steps that he has to follow. He's come in, he's a qualified chef, but he can't get any work as a chef because no one wants to employ a Nigerian. And that is a very real problem that immigrants experience in South Africa. There have been some deadly violent attacks here in the last few years on people who come from other countries into South Africa seeking refuge. A lot of xenophobia against, some people from Somalia who are, hardworking shopkeepers. A lot of hardworking Somalian shopkeepers have had their shops completely ransacked, looted, burned. They've been killed. So what you're seeing in the film, it's it is fiction, but it is very much along the lines of what has gone on here. So it is a window into the very real and stark conditions socio-politically in South Africa right now.
Yeah.
And
that is one of the things that jumped out at me, because I go, okay, look, I know I'm watching a quote, and people will say this to me too. It's just a movie. I go, well, there's a reason that movies sometimes speak to us through these stories, and that a lot of things are not quote unquote based on fact, but they're based on real conditions, like you said. And maybe it's not that person, but this is clear. And that's the ignorance over here that you kind of combat, where everything you see on TV is fiction until you don't want it to be, or if it fits your narrative, or it's comfortable for you, that kind of thing. So it was really heartbreaking, actually. And I was so anxious.
That storyline for me was my favorite storyline in the film because it was so moving. Yeah.
And it was really moving. And like you said, it's one of those things where it's an uphill battle, and we're not, unless we talk about it, unless we figure out ways to get around it, and it's happening everywhere. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with just how you look or just how you, it's literally xenophobia. And I think it's just education is what I constantly lean on. We spoke about it at the very beginning. You gave me the good lecture on not knowing our history, right? But we're having the same issue here, as with the anti-Asian sentiment, and even just being actually American, and that not even resonating with people that Asian Americans are American. So it's very frustrating. It's really frustrating to watch and to see. Was there a theme also around the timing of everything with Freedom Day? Am I wrong in saying that was part of the narrative as well? And if you could share about that, I mean, that I think is the only key thing people will go, oh, South Africa, Nelson Mandela, and but then that's it. You don't know much more than that. And again, because I was US educated, I clearly know nothing. So please tell me.
It's not true.
Teach me more.
Okay. I think you know a lot, but I'll tell you some more, so you know some more. So the 27th of April is Freedom Day in South Africa. It is a national holiday here. It is also coincidentally my brother's birthday. And it is the day on which I met my girlfriend. So it's a big day for me.
It's a big day for you.
For many South Africans. It was the day that we had our first democratic election in 1994. That's why it is Freedom Day, and that's why it is celebrated every year. And it was definitely intentional that the film is that a lot of the action takes place in the film on that day, I guess, to stir up conversation around this, around, we are now, nearly 30 years. Wow. We're 28 years into our democracy. And I guess it's saying, for this character, for Johan, he's saying, you call this freedom. I think he's one of the lines that I had. And he's looking at, the stark realities of South Africa now, where, it's without a doubt, you have a party that was the party of liberation in the ANC as a failed government. We had a corrupt element with faction within the ANC governing the country when Jacob Zuma was in power. It is my personal belief, and obviously these are my personal beliefs, that Cyril Ramaphosa, our current president, he's straight. He's not corrupt, and he is part of the other faction, which is probably around about half of the ANC. So if you imagine the Republican Party as to where it is right now, where you have the Trumpers on one side, and you have the kind of, I suppose, the anti-Trumpers, the non-Trumpers, or whatever you want to call them, on the other side, the African National Congress is pretty much, it's split down the middle in these two camps. And, they were the party of liberation. They were Nelson Mandela's party. They were the party, Umkhonto weSizwe, which is the literal meaning is spear of the nation. That was the armed wing of the ANC. Were preparing for bloody civil war and were training people outside of South Africa in neighboring countries and in Russia. They were training them for the war of liberation that never happened. Fortunately, we had a peaceful, almost bloodless transition into democracy. But that brought with it all these other problems, because you had literally a trained army of liberation that suddenly came back into the country, and the only skill that these people had was to fight a war that never happened. So you had a whole army of trained soldiers without an army to join. Some of them were brought into the defense force, but many of them weren't. And so straight after democracy, there was a huge spike in violent crime. And we were the car hijacking capital of the world, because there were stashes of AK-47s, of Kalashnikov rifles all over the country that suddenly were available. And I'm not kidding. You could buy one on the streets for 27 Rand, which is about $2.
Oh my gosh.
So, the US isn't the only country in the world with an assault rifle problem. We still, after that, there was an amnesty and people were able to hand the rifles in and no questions were asked. But, there was a whole lot of problems that came with it. And the ANC, has failed as a government because they were a party of liberation. They were not they did not have the training and the skills to run a country, in my opinion. They had some very astute politicians within the party, but basically what has happened is there has been so much corruption and nepotism and jobs for friends that there are many people in positions of government where they should be highly trained, qualified people. You've got people, running entire departments that aren't qualified to do so. And again, I say that these are my own personal opinions. This is, this is not necessarily the truth. This is my own opinion, and I know that there are people within the ANC who will say that this is not true at all. And I face them happily and have a conversation about this with them happily. But yeah, I mean, it's, I suppose this is what we wanted the film to create conversations about. Let's talk about this. And we can't open the door to empathy and forgiveness without having these hard conversations. And we can't move forward without forgiveness. So these conversations have to happen. More films like this need to be made. And I'm so glad that the world is getting to see this. I mean, I really thought that this was going to be a conversation starter in South Africa. I didn't realize it was going to be a conversation starter around the world. And I'm so glad that it is, because in the same way, we wouldn't have overcome apartheid without international pressure and without the world looking at us with, with some form of transparency, even though, you know, there was such massive media blackouts and you know, there was a massive amount of God, the word has just completely slipped my mind.
Censorship.
Censorship. Yes, thank you. Government censorship during the apartheid years. But the world nevertheless put such huge pressure on South Africa, on the apartheid government, to bring democracy about, that it happened. Yeah. So, you know, we probably would have had a violent civil war without that international pressure. And similarly now, I hope, you know, this goes some way in letting the world see, you know, just where we're at and the struggles that we are facing as a country. And hopefully, you know, starting conversations around, you know, why party loyalty is such a dangerous thing. And party loyalty, I honestly believe, can bring down countries, it can lead to civil war. And you know, I think we always have to remember that politicians are there because, you know, they've been given a job to do by the voters. And if you're not happy with the job that a political party is doing, vote them out. Find a new party, start a new political party. You know, certainly where we're at here, we need a different answer. So, you know, we need a different party. We need a different party in power, I believe. And you know, I look at the American problem. You guys as well. It's you have. It blows my mind that there are only two options still. You know, the fact that Bernie wasn't able to run for a different party other than the Democratic Party, who I believe that elements within the Democratic Party have sabotaged Bernie's campaign, and I believe Bernie Sanders would have made a phenomenal president. You know, so but Bernie had to run on a Democratic ticket because there wasn't a third option. I think, you know, and America is the country of free choice, and yet you've only got two options. It's like everything else in America. You go to Costco. I always love coming to Costco when I'm in the States, because it's like I just walk down the aisles and kind of go, this is amazing. Look at all these things on all these shelves. You have so many choices. And then you get to politics. It's like the one thing that's really important, and it's A or B.
Oh my gosh, that is so well summed up. I don't even think I can comment to it, because I agree with you. I think it's frustrating. Let's just say that it's very frustrating. And there are people who are constantly trying to work against that and for having options, but also just within the ones we have, doing the best we can. And I think it's interesting how all of that is coming to light. We, you know, our country has always been seen as this world leader and all of these things. And you're right. In so many ways, we're very advanced. And in so many ways, we are, you know, in the dinosaur age of thought and progression. And so, and going backwards, right? Like, you know, you mentioned the AK problem and having, you know, gun issues and all of that. And I am at a loss on a daily basis. And, you know, beyond that, I live in Florida, which is constantly on the national news for the things that are happening here. And it's definitely frustrating. So I did want to talk to you as well, you know, from our last conversation about a few things. And in my notes, and this may even kind of trickle in, because we talk about the, you know, socio-political situation and colonization and how we have a Caribbean tie, and also your grandfather was born in China. And I wanted to get into that a lot more.
Yeah,
and
we didn't
into
talk
more
about that
Langley.
because I only remembered that after we'd finished our last conversation.
Yes. I wanted to make sure that we discuss that, and don't think you're off the hook about telling me about your martial arts journey, because, you know, Sifu Mimi on the other side's coming later. But I do want to I want to hear more about that, because we're just going to go all over the world here in this episode.
Okay, cool. Great. We've got all the heavy stuff behind us now.
Yes.
So now we can talk about fun stuff. Yeah, so we do have this incredible connection where
Yes.
it's your dad, right, who's from the
Yes,
Caribbean.
my dad. Well, no, my dad is from China. My mom is from Jamaica.
Oh, your mom's from Jamaica. That's right.
Yes.
So it's the other way around. So my dad was born in St. Vincent in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And and his whole family on that side, on his mother's side, were from the island, going back many generations. Then my dad's dad was born in Hong Kong because his parents were missionaries.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, a missionary. My grandfather was a doctor and a medical officer during the Second World War in the Royal Navy, and his father was, if I remember correctly, a missionary, also a doctor, but a missionary doctor. So was a doctor at a mission, but he was a very devout Christian. And my grandparents, were in China for, I guess, 20 years or so. And my grandfather was born while they were there. And I think they had to beat a very hasty retreat when the colonizers were kind of, kicked out at one stage. I'm not sure if it was around the time of the rebellion or I'm not sure, but all I know is that they had to make quite a fast exit.
Right. Time to leave now.
Don't leave. Don't need to pack.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was that. There was like literally, it's like that Indiana Jones, like the thing is closing and you just want to like slide under the door and don't worry about your hat kind of thing. Yeah. It could be that way. So, oh, that's fascinating. And do you get a lot of stories from, that time period of them spending time there? Have you got
I have very little because I didn't really, my father left home when I was 9.
Okay.
So, I still have a relationship with him and I get little snippets of information from him whenever I see him or talk to him. But, those times are quite few and far between.
Yeah.
And I've never managed to, get any information really about the Chinese connection, other than that my grandfather was born there.
Yeah. But that's it's a lot. That's a lot of fun. And then talk to me about St. Vincent. Now there, I know you've visited and
I haven't visited. That's
no,
the thing. I haven't visited.
I thought we talked about how beautiful it is, and or you're talking about the pictures.
I've seen lots of photographs.
Okay.
From my dad, and my brother has been there and spent time there. I have 4 brothers, so my dad has 5 sons. And one of my brothers has actually got citizenship. He's a citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and spent a lot of time there. My 2 youngest brothers have spent time there, but my eldest brother and I haven't actually ever had a chance to go. So but the book that I wrote, I've written a novel around, and it's set there. So, it's, I've got a lot of information from my brother and my dad about the island. And whenever there's a cricket player that comes through who's from the island, who's promising and is threatening to make this the West Indies cricket team, my dad always lets me know. And usually very often the player doesn't get picked for the national team, and my dad goes, it's politics.
I love it. And I did have that on my list as well to ask you about your novel, because it just says novel in my notes. So and I love that it has a tie to St. Vincent. So and I'm surprised you didn't go to write it there,
Well, that's the thing, it's kind of, I've been editing the book now for way too long. It's been over a year.
Okay.
That I've been in the editing stages, and there's the part of me that doesn't want to get it published until I've actually been there, because I feel like there's got to be a second edit where I just, there's so much about the, I don't know, when you're writing so much about,
environment. in the
Yeah,
atmosphere. Yeah.
certain things are evocative when, when you're specific. It's in the specifics, it's in the details. And I feel like I have to actually, in order to do the book justice, I have to be there and smell it for myself.
Okay.
And see it for myself and live
And
it for myself.
and eat
And
there for
eat.
yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. Speaking of eating, I could take Hoon with me because, he's my other big eating fan.
Okay. There you go. I mean, it's really an
Yeah.
arm twist to go, hey, let's go spend a week in St. Vincent. That's
Yeah, no,
just, the
tough,
horror. That's real tough. But,
Yeah.
remembering how much you love being Langley and all, like, you can get your curry goats, you can get your, oh my goodness, the food there. Oh, and, I forgot last time I had a lamb on my thing and I wanted to show
There it is.
you. Yeah, it's my
There
lamb.
it is. I see the lamb.
It's my lamb.
Uh,
But yeah,
Yep.
I think I know nothing of actual like prose or writing, but there must be something if your novel is set there to, like you said, just to wake up and look out and see the
I have
island
to go.
and
I know I have to go.
drink the drinks and eat the food, and like you said,
Swim
smell
in the
it and just
ocean.
swim in the
Yeah.
ocean, walk, and just hearing the dialects, like even though you can talk to family and be around it, but I feel submersion is the way to go for sure. I mean, even if it's just an excuse to go take a week vacation in St. Vincent, I think you should do it and write it off as a work trip.
Absolutely. I want to go walk in the forest and find some parrots, which feature in the book as well. There's a parrot that is endemic to St. Vincent.
Okay.
And it's found up in the rainforest there. So I want to go and find some parrots as well.
And would that be easily seen by bird watchers and stuff, or is it this like rare thing you're gonna have to sit in the forest for days? Because knowing you being the extreme sports athlete you are, you'd be like, I just stayed in the rainforest for 3 days straight and ate berries or something.
No, as I've gotten older, I've become more attached to sleeping in a bed. Call me soft. I don't care.
Soft in your age. Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's going to be exciting. Can you share about the novel or not quite yet?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's largely autobiographical. And I suppose there's elements in there of my father and my dad, my brother and me. And then, half of the novel is set there and half is set in the UK. And there are events in that, happened to the protagonist that happened to me in my life. So it's kind of, it's not sucked out of nowhere. It has it is a work of fiction that has a root in reality.
Okay.
And obviously the family connection there to St. Vincent, there's an element of, of truth to, well, there are many elements of truth to many of the goings on in the novel. And, there's an element of romance. There's an element of a man who finds himself in midlife crisis and kind of wondering what next. And I'm fortunate in that I don't ever wonder about what next from a work perspective, but certainly kind of from a life and spiritual perspective. There've been times, and I did definitely have a midlife crisis a few years ago where I kind of went, well, what now? How do I, make sense of all this? I suppose there was a period of disillusionment that I went through, which often helps one, take a more spiritual path or a more inquisitive path, shall I say? And I guess that's where I found myself when I started writing the book. There was certainly elements of, kind of generational trauma, because I'm quite curious about that. I nearly lost my son in a motorcycle accident a couple of years ago, and fortunately, he's 100% well now, and he's healthy and happy. as happy as a 20-year-old male can be. uh, but that the trauma around nearly losing him certainly got me thinking a lot about father-son relationships in my own life, and my relationship with my dad, and so there's lots of that stuff in the book. So there's lots of daddy issues in the book.
But it sounds like a great outlet, but also like to kind of play into what you are as a creative as well, right?
And then hopefully lots that people can relate to there. It won't just be stuff that people with father issues can relate to. There's stuff for everybody. There's stuff that lots of people can relate to. And I guess I'm going to circle all the way back now to Collision, and that is just to say that was one of the things that we set out to do in the film with regards to the character development. And the feedback that I've had about the character development has been so great, and that everyone said they can kind of empathize with and relate to little bits of every character. Even the gangster character of Brasol, the kind of racist character of Johan. There's relatable bits there for all the characters, relatable parts, and that's what we wanted. We set out to, especially in a South African context where different people from different backgrounds and walks of life in the South African population can find common ground and relatable, something relatable in someone who comes from a totally different part of the socio-economic wheel, I guess. And I've had a lot of encouraging feedback on the street from people where, a lot of people have said things like, yo, man, your character's a real dick, but I really felt sorry for him. Which, and that's kind of what I kind of went, okay, cool. Job done.
Yeah, no, really. And I think any parent of a teenager, I not mothered children directly myself, but caretaking and mentoring. I mean, anyone who's had to deal with a teenage girl might have a lot of empathy for you, even for just that sliver of a moment in any case, right? All right, I have to ask you now how your training is going, your kung fu and your martial arts journey, and I'm excited to hear what's going on.
Okay, so I as I picked up 7-star Mantis Kung Fu towards the second half of last year. I started training with Sifu Wayne Pinto here in Cape Town, and my training was going really well up until I had to start doing a lot of stunt preparation for the other Netflix project that I worked on, which was One Piece. And so for all the the manga fans out there, that is what I've been busy with. That I had to become a blonde for 6 months. I had to put on 22 pounds for a role, which I found really challenging. But I had the greatest time on the show, and I can't wait for the fans of the show to see, the live action version of. There are a lot of very, very kind of fanatical, diehard One Piece fans out there, which I realized as soon as the news broke that I was involved with the project. And I think they're going to be extremely satisfied and happy with what is coming their way. But yeah, I basically my kung fu training had to take a bit of a back seat when I started training with the stunt team there, just because my 49-year-old body could only take so much punishment in 1 week. And then directly after I finished filming, my partner and I went traveling for a couple of weeks, and for a lot of different reasons I have not made it back into training since then. I've told my sifu I need to take a hiatus. I just needed some family time. And now also I needed to shift my training to unfortunately lose those 22 pounds and get back into Walter Buckley size. So I had to suddenly shift the nature of my training from lots of weight, weight training to put on the size, to lots of cardio to lose it now. So I've been running and cycling and swimming a hell of a lot, and that has taken up all the time that I can devote to the physical side of my life of training. So I'll get back in later on in the year, and I do intend to join the Warrior team stunt team. Yeah, in the stunt tent. I'm sure you've seen on social media, Brett.
Yes,
Brett
I
and
have.
the team's amazing new space.
Wow.
And yeah, I haven't made it there yet, but my intention is to make it there shortly and actually join them on a weekly basis for the duration of the season, because I'm keen to learn as much as I can from them. And
absolutely.
and I've hit my goal weight now, so I'm back down to my original Buckley weight, and I'll be able to fit into my suits again, which is great.
Yeah, you don't want wardrobe angry with you.
No.
You keep them happy. But
absolutely.
Luckily you are like a triathlon expert, and you can swim and cycle and run and do all of those things and know what to do exactly. But I know that regardless, it's so difficult. Trying to lose 5 pounds is really difficult for me. So I can't even imagine the discipline. But I want to ask if because I know you didn't get to do years of Kung Fu training with your Sifu or anything, but I know that the little that we spoke, you really connected with it. And I'm curious what you did learn. How does that translate into the other training that you do? And then of course with the stunt team, that's totally different, because there's a lot of wushu, there's a lot of different styles that you're going to learn. But when you go to do anything physical, have you found there to be a crossover, or what do you take from your Kung Fu training?
Yes, absolutely. So, in all the other work I've always done in the past, with fight choreography, my biggest challenge has always been to be more fluid. And I found, the stunt teams that I've worked with in the past have always had to work really hard for me not to be kind of like this. I get quite tense, and my biggest challenge is always to stay loose, stay fluid, and stay relaxed. And I found with one piece that had changed completely thanks to my Kung Fu training.
Okay, good.
It's just relaxed me a lot more. I'm able to make it more of a dance now. I was able to do a little bit of Tai Chi as well with my Sifu, which helped a lot. And I found just moving as a fighter, kind of having that stuff ingrained on a weekly or twice weekly basis. I was able to not have to think about the basic fight stuff, just in terms of my footwork, especially. Whereas in the past, I would always get tied up with my footwork, and it was kind of slow and laborious. Everything's just more fluid now, and came a hell of a lot more easily. So it's helped. It's been like light years of change.
I love it. I love it. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
And I know that you are looking forward to, and I know you can't talk too much about Warrior, but obviously Brett's just teasing us with those videos, and also like, oh my gosh, I feel sore just watching. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to find a way to just crash the set and come and visit and just sneak in there. Can you like sneak me in one day? I mean, that tent, I just want to see it. I just want to stretch with everyone.
I'm going to say right now, we're going to get you in. You're going to have to do some COVID. There will be some COVID testing required and COVID protocol stuff, but we'll get you there.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe
I'm so jealous.
Maybe you can lead a class.
Yeah, I'd love to lead a class. I'm just going to text Brett every day, like, kung fu, Northern traditional kung fu class, let me know what day, and that way I can schedule
Oh,
it
that
in,
would
or
be so
sword
cool.
class, or, let me know. I'm there. But, oh, it looks amazing. And the team, I mean, you look at those stunt team experts, and, I feel my 40-plus-year-old self going, oh gosh, this is, there's a time for that in your life, but like, kudos, and just, it's so much excitement surrounding it. And I think I can guess who you're most excited to see, but I'm sure this reunion is something you're really looking forward to. Who are you most excited to see?
You know what? I'm actually looking forward to seeing everybody.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing Hoon. But I'm looking forward to seeing absolutely everybody. I mean, I feel like it does feel like it's going to be a big family reunion.
Mhm.
And some of the team are already here, as you know. And guys, I think Dean arrives this weekend. You've got Hoon coming in at the end of next week. I think everyone's coming in like in the next 2 weeks. So,
Wow.
And then we start shooting July 18th. The cameras start to roll. So regardless of whether I'm in that first scene or not, I'm gonna be on set when cameras roll again, because I think there are gonna be a few tearful eyes.
Oh, definitely.
On set when we roll again.
It's gonna, what a journey.
Be a very emotional moment.
Absolutely.
So I want to be there for that.
Oh my gosh, what a reunion, what a journey. And so exciting that it's really, it's like, you knew it was happening, but now it's like, it's really happening. People are here, the stunt tent is up. Happening. I mean, it's really happening. Everyone's coming in, and watching everyone's post, and texting with Perry. Everybody's just, the excitement is phenomenal. And that's why I'm so jealous, but super excited for everything. And I'll definitely
the fans are gonna be, we have got such an exciting season ahead. There is just so much. The character development is insane. So the writers have let us all into, a lot of our kind of character journeys, and we've had snippets of other characters' journeys as well. They're not letting too many cats out the bag, but they certainly have been quite generous in letting us know where our own characters are going in the season. And I've spoken to some of the other actors, and it's gonna be an insane season in terms of where all the characters go.
Oh my gosh.
And we've got some amazing new characters. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that.
Well, there's always new characters on a show.
Yeah,
there's always new characters on a show.
But yes, and some very exciting characters coming.
Oh my gosh.
Some very exciting actors. So,
yeah. I'm super psyched about it. I can't wait. And amongst each other, are you allowed to tell each other like, oh, here's what's happening with my character? Or do they want everyone to kind of keep things hush hush?
I don't know if I should answer that.
Okay. You're like, because I've already broken that rule if that's the case. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God. No, it's just,
I mean, you kind of have to know when you're sharing a scene, right? Like what's going on in a sense. So there's that.
That is where there is crossover.
Okay.
And I mean, I know there's some amazing scenes that I'm getting to shoot with some characters that I really love working with. So I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited too. You're getting me excited. I'm like Googling flights right now. How long is filming going to go for?
We need to be done. And I think the aim is to be done just before Christmas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So we start, the 18th of July, and we shoot all the way through the rest of the year.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I've got time for my visit. I can plan it out.
Yeah.
And Jason, I had him on the show, and I'm like, well, we're supposed to be planning a karaoke outing, because he said they never had that. And he's like the expert ringleader of all karaoke. And I'm like, what? And you haven't done this? I'm like, you don't even need a bar. You can do it in the stunt tent. Just set up your set. Yeah. Then everybody can join in. So, oh my gosh, so much fun. Looking forward to all of the amazing things. Obviously, Warrior season 3 everyone is super psyched. But like you said, your film Collision right now is currently on Netflix, and then also your manga release of One Piece. I mean, you've got a lot going on, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really, fortunately busy time, and is the complete kind of antithesis of where I was 2 years ago when we were in hard lockdown, and there was like 10 months. I went for a 10-month stretch without a day's work, and a lot of the acting community was in the same boat, and a lot of people were really scared and kind of not knowing how our industry was going to survive, and if it was going to survive, and if we were ever going to work again, and where the world was going. It was just a really scary place, and we seem to be coming out. Well, we are coming out the other side of that, and we're still standing. We're a little battered and bruised.
Nothing we can't recover from, though. We're getting there.
Absolutely, we're getting back up, and that's what it's all about. We've taken a couple of hits, and we're getting back in the fight.
Absolutely. Oh gosh. Well, Langley, thank you so much for the conversation. I'm looking forward to episode number 3 with you.
Cannot wait, Mimi. Thanks so much.
All right. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/Sifu Mimi Chan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.